In today's rapidly evolving digital landscape, the role of AI in shaping social media strategies and digital marketing has become increasingly significant. We are thrilled to have Shubhranshu Singh, the Chief Marketing Officer of Tata Motors CVBU, and Rohan Chincholi, Chief Digital Officer at Havas Media India, join us for a discussion on social media in an AI era. In this episode of Media Dialogues with Storyboard 18, we will dig into how future facing marketing visionaries and practitioners are looking at the integration of AI tools in media, the balance between automation and authenticity, and the future of AI driven personalization. We will also explore the challenges, opportunities, and ethical considerations that come with leveraging AI in social media marketing. So, with that, let me welcome both Shubhranshu and Rohan to the studio. It's wonderful to have you both here.
Great to be here again. Thanks for having us.
So let me just sort of open the conversation with a simple question, really. Shubhranshu, I'll come to you 1st. How is AI really changing social media? But also the opposite, how is AI driven social media changing the marketer's job today?
Well, first of all, social media itself has evolved a great deal in the last, say, 20 odd years. If you see the earliest versions of what social media was setting out to do, it was intended to be genuinely about a network of people following each other, sharing their thoughts. And
Early Facebook
that's
days.
right. So the content was supposed to be synchronous, the feed was organic, and from there, as it grew in scale and complexity, the intermediation happened. So the algorithmic injection of content itself changed the complexion of social media a great deal. And there, it had a reciprocal effect on the content creation as well. If you are going to be on social media and if you aspire to be a big hit, you have to subscribe to the norm that the platform sets for yourself. Riding on top of that is now the arrival of artificial intelligence. My personal belief is that it has been around for a very long time, but it was just lurking under the surface. Now, with large language models and this conversation ability, and also people being able to see the rise of synthetic media in a sense, this will be flattening out the playing field a great deal. And therefore, social media will transform in terms of scale, speed, the arrival of content, and the churn will make brand culture homogeneous at one level. So the responsibility lies on marketeers to now again humanize social media to a great extent. It's ironical that I'm discussing this in the context of the rise of AI, but I think that balance is very necessary. So I think artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence in particular will disrupt $700 billion of advertising spend in digital media. It will disrupt about $250 billion of cloud computing. It will disrupt about $5.5 trillion of e-commerce. And the future is already here. It's not very far away.
Rohan, those are fantastic numbers, right?
Absolutely.
And while it sort of evokes a lot of wonder and excitement, also fear, but we'll park the fear part for a bit. Give me your thoughts on what Shubhranshu said also in terms of how AI is really disrupting social media and therefore, the marketer's job, as well as on the agency side
Absolutely.
with how you help your clients deal with all this change.
I think the way I see it is social media has two functions and largely within the generative AI space. The first is the content curation side, right? So I believe what would have otherwise taken 4 hours is just a prompt away. I think the scale at which content can be created is just phenomenal. On the other side of social media is I think we are all bucketed in different cohorts. If AI did not exist, how well is a marketer's budget? And think of this, that maybe the social platforms, you take the other intermediaries out, about 40% of budgets going towards social media, and they're able to do it because it's post login. I think there is a lot of information that is connected to the cohorts that each of these individuals are placed in. Actually, I could be a million cohorts for 100 different brands, and just even assume 10 touch points, 10 million, 3.6 million unique buckets is where I can be placed in. So I feel both from an ad ecosystem standpoint and the largely the content curation, I think agencies are having a good time. But I think we might end up using all the tools, but there requires a human element it's not very easy that you create a content and just post it directly. I think there are brand guidelines. There needs to be basic checks, flows, hygiene, quality that needs to be done. Only then can a content go in. And platforms like Meta are going to tag AI related content
Right.
when posted.
Absolutely. This kind of strange situation where we are in, where the disclosures are required, and so how is AI going to change that sort of trust element, maybe for brands, for marketers, for users eventually? How are you thinking about that? Because that's a very critical thing that I think a lot of marketers should start thinking about.
Indeed, it is perhaps the most significant thing when it comes to consumer facing content, because let's deal with it in three boxes, right? The first is, what was the modality with which marketing content was developed? There was a principal and an agency relationship, a client and an agency relationship. There was collaboration for ideation. There was a set cadence. You gave him a brief. The people came back with an idea, then they storyboarded it, then there was more visualization, tweaks, research, more tweaks. It was an iterative process. What the client was buying effectively was agency time. That model was selling human hours. Today, with the acceleration, I'm going to be looking to buy only output, because the number of iterations that it takes, or the speed at which that will be concluded, is actually going to change, fundamentally change.
Very compressed, absolutely.
Secondly, when I write a brief, I have a fuzzy, somewhat amorphous idea in the mind. The visualization is what brings it to life. And when a film is being made by a director, the director's eye sees it clearer than anybody else till it's off the editing table. Today, that visualization, of what you used to call a mood board or a mood video or a scratch video, is as good as the real thing, and in no time at all. So what I am going to end up doing, therefore, is to prove that it lives up to that unique ideal of a brand, that its provenance is beyond dispute, because what I am putting out can be copied, spoofed, or reproduced by anybody out of anywhere on the planet. And so it's not important only what the brand is saying, but indeed whether the brand is saying it or not. So things like watermarks, proof points, and owning that consumer facing voice is going to be important. And the third box is, where is it consumed? Now today we are living in a glittering world of glass, right? There are in the last 10 years, 3 billion new smartphones have come into being. Each smartphone has more computing power than the entire planet did, say 30 years ago. And so therefore, the kind of multiplier effect that it will have on just the ability for everybody to become a producer. So this gatekeeper, an editor, a photographer, a fashion practitioner, a cultural theorist, deciding what people should do, standing guard, injecting their ethical code onto it, has completely gone away. And in this chaos, which is a good thing, because more people are being able to create culture bottom up, brands are also going to be a part of this centrifugal force, right? The forces that are set in motion will take us in very many new directions. And so the brand has to be clearer about its positioning. The brand has to be close to its consumers. And eventually the brand needs to do a lot more with permission marketing and first party data. These are all the things that come in the procession of how AI will change marketing.
So Rohan, it's interesting about all these changes that are happening, of course, but on the agency side, tell me, what is the impact, right? Especially when you're looking at social media strategies and digital marketing, what are some of the tools and platforms where you're seeing enhanced work happening, where you're seeing the change? Give me a little bit of insight into that.
I think largely, I think between specifically to generative AI, right? I think the agencies feel that they need to change the way they operate, right? There is work that can be done in a comparatively shorter time span now, which means that prompts are going to be more relevant, and you need people to derive and formulate the right prompts to be able to get the right output. So whether it is tools, and IBM Watson, for example, is a fabulous tool that does sentiment analysis. Or there are multiple tools like even by Google on natural language processing. ChatGPT, for example. I think all these tools the agency is also getting trained on, because it's not that you just log in and you put a prompt and it starts giving you the perfect output, right? It'll never happen. And yeah, I think because the social platforms are going to start tagging content that is created through AI. I think it's also equally important for agencies like us to be very transparent about what kind of content is AI generated. There was a lot of human intervention, which continues even right now. A lot of posts that could be going out require the creative director to give the right prompt, perhaps get the output, understand if it's in line with what the brand has been communicating over the months. Is it in line with the brand guidelines? So I think the effort is roughly, it's gone down, but I think there is a significantly more effort required right now to be able to be sure that the output fits the brand tonality as of now. And I think we have been equipping with a lot of tools across spectrum, whether it is Midjourney, whether it is IBM Watson, whether it is TensorFlow. I think we've all trying to understand how each of them can add incremental value to our brands, to be very honest.
So we'll talk about this sort of balance between authenticity and automation. But Shubhranshu, let me also ask you this, because you mentioned that there's all this power that people have today, right? Are you at all sort of concerned about, what a few people call like the democratization of mediocrity with AI? And let's talk about sort of social media and on the content side. How are you thinking about that? How are you thinking about elevating the output, like Rohan mentioned?
So that is a real concern. But let me just say that traditionally marketing was about the big, the broadcast, and the infrequent. And then it has changed to the frequent or always on, small, and small screen. So it's no longer projected. When you see a movie on a large screen, it's very different from when you're looking down on your smartphone screen. But that is a reality, and there are just billions of such content units being consumed all the time. Now, when you live in this world, there is going to be a lowest common denominator effect, which is without a doubt present for all to see at two levels. One, because I want to get to my audience and then the audience of my audience, I have to be very religious in subscribing to what works. So if I'm on Insta Reels or if I am on YouTube, I know the kind of content units that get celebrated, that get shared. I know what a meme ought to be, or I'm culturally subscribing to that norm. And so everybody is doing that. The point is whether marketeers will own certain influential voices, whether they'll be able to groom them. For instance, at Tata Motors, we have created more than 330 influencers who are largely on YouTube and on Instagram, etc., who are talking in their own editorial style about our products. It still is algorithmically fed, but we are selecting them programmatically as well. So I'm not worried about the diffused algorithm having a lot of clout. That was already on. In fact, Rohan and I were discussing programmatic advertising is nothing but artificial intelligence, which is doing the job for you. So it is also listening to the voice of the masses. It is also looking to crowdsource what will work. Every time you listen to music, you consume the music and the music consumes you. Whereas earlier, if you remember, you went to a rhythm house and they said, we are out of this record, it's no longer available, because they didn't know whether other stores in Bombay were selling it or not. They don't know whether it's trending. I had stock, I've sold it. Today, when you get a Spotify feed, every interaction is labeled, recorded, read, and it's pinged back to you. So this is the new world we live in. I'm not so worried about the lower level of content output. I am interested from a marketer's perspective on how you curate for more, how you catalyze. So the marketer as a catalyst is a very interesting role in the future.
I like that, marketer as a catalyst. Rohan, what do you think about that, marketer as a catalyst? And then where does the agency then come in?
Okay, so that's quite interesting as well. I think, agency will always act as a force multiplier to any marketer. I believe that we have the right set of tools. Maybe we also have the right set of skill sets, trained skill sets within that spectrum as well. We also understand the changing trends in the marketing landscape as well. So I think agency will continue to be that force that enables marketers and brands to be able to perhaps deliver a notch higher than what they have been delivering, largely because of multi-category experience and having understood the entire landscape as well. AI also is, in a way, playing its own role, right? For example, whenever we are using any form of these tools, like programmatic he mentioned, I think how else is it possible that the marketing budgets up to 60% going, let's say, towards performance marketing, and brands are happy with the kind of output, even including e-commerce. Now, for that to happen, there is some amount of large data set at play, which is able to put people in the right buckets, target them right with the classic right people at the right time with the right creative and with the right form of engagement. So I believe agencies will continue to be that force which is trying to stay ahead of the curve by all means, with AI being one part of it.
Can I just quickly add? I think in the arrival of AI as a common factor across the board with its mass adoption. By the way, in the last year alone, $50 billion worth of venture funding has gone into AI startups in the US alone. They're not doing it as a social experiment. They're doing it to commercialize them rapidly. So new giants may emerge out of the blind spot. But even the way it is today, once everybody accepts the hygiene level of AI injection, that is when the real play starts. And in that, I think the agency and client relationship will have to be a much closer one, because the pace of change is such that you have to be together in the mix, and therefore or be swept away. So I'm not saying this is a bunker mentality, but the client and the agency have to work more intimately in terms of understanding where the data is. And one prime example of this is that in marketing, irrespective of AI or any other smart new arrival, familiarity is always more important than novelty over a period in time, because that's the whole purpose of a brand. I know it, I believe it, I trust it, I prefer it. It's a positive prejudice. And so therefore, unless you are familiar, you will not cherish the novelty. So novelty is familiarity with a twist. And content may be king, but distribution is the kingdom. So unless you find new ways to get incremental audiences, so speaking of Havas and us, our work has to be tighter and more integrated, because the pace of change has quickened.
Let's zoom out a little bit, because we are talking about AI and its tentacles, so to speak, and just technology in general, how pervasive it is in our lives. And we need to, of course, people have started talking about the ethical considerations, challenges, everything with AI. Shubhranshu, how are you thinking about that? And I mean, not just as, the CMO of Tata Motors, but how are you thinking about the ethical considerations and the dilemmas around the use of AI in your business, brands, or just everyday life?
And in every way, not only as a marketer, as a consumer myself, as a citizen, in every way, and I am on record time and again, I am a boomer, I am not a doomer. I believe in the positive impact of this technology. Ethical considerations come into being when I am able to pass off as what I am not, for example. Or if I am injecting bias, which is polarizing a community. Or if I am able to convince you of the merits of something where none exist. So therefore, as I said, the brand's essential role as a trust mark comes into play. It's a very important ethical responsibility. And also, as we live in this world where information is filtered and comes to us algorithmically, as a citizen, as a voter, as a consumer, I must time and again look at life away from a lit screen, life away from social media. And therefore, as a marketer, I'm also obliged to do a full mix. I should do below the line promotions. I should go to conventional above the line media. I should cultivate influencers. I should do digital, conventional social. I should have, profoundly sensible websites, my own owned properties. Because if you only rely on the AI mediated world, then you're going to swim where everybody else is swimming. So the ethical consideration is, am I living up to my trust? Am I providing the right information? And am I vigilant that somebody else is not doing something in my name? This is equally big consideration. And because the pace of change is so fast, you could look away and things could happen. So I think just being vigilant will also be a much higher order of responsibility for marketers in the future.
In terms of just sort of, future facing, future trends, what do you see happening, say, in this year as we go along?
I think, and in keeping it in context of social platforms, I think some of the changes that we will see on our on the social platforms, we will find a lot of for you sort of a recommendations much more stronger. I think when social moved all the way from Orkut to where we are today, Orkut had just one-on-one communication. You exactly knew who you like.
I haven't even heard the word awkward in
Orkut, yeah,
a very
yeah, I know,
long
I know.
time.
So I think that was a ad-free zone and no AI involved, pure communication. But I think now maybe the cycle completes. Today again we get back to maybe the algorithms playing in such a way that you end up reading the kind of content that you want to read and the friends that you want to reach out to, with hoping the social platforms hoping that they get a better engagement out of it, which will be the end metric. But I think the social commerce space with AI, product discovery, I think we all perhaps would have discovered a lot of new brands, and largely because of AI. You know, how else with a a social platform know that you like something of a product A or product B, right? So I think that will be critical, and I think it'll make consumer lives easy. Easily post content. You know, sometimes we think a lot, we even know what we want to express, but we can't put it in words. Maybe AI will do the job of putting it in words. So I think the engagement rates will go up, and that is where most of the social channels would be focusing on. So uber personalization for you, simplifying lives, feeling more connected, giving you the right content. I think perfect recipe for a right social narrative. That's my.
Shubhranshu?
I think over the next 2 years, and I'm speaking as a marketer, I think corporations will bring this more to heartland territory. I think actual licensed usage will go up. People will be trained. Right now, it's all, oh, have you seen X or Y? Have you seen this one generates logo? This one does copy for you, and this one is OpenAI, and so. I think now scale usage will start. With that will be the challenges that people face, the processes that need to change. So I think a lot of work life will start getting organized around the efficiency boosters that are inevitable from mass adoption of something like AI. And I think also in the consumer world, artificial general intelligence, because it is iterative by nature, because it is dynamic and even purposefully unstable by nature, people will also, so it will be a race to service smarter and smarter consumers via smarter and smarter marketing. And I think adoption at scale will change the game, because I don't know if you remember, maybe you were a teenager then, Dilshad, but I remember the time when in the company that I worked for then, only vice presidents got a BlackBerry. And you were so envious of them, oh my God, his
The
phone
BlackBerry
gets,
boys.
he gets an email on his phone. And, and then it became, like the air we breathe, everybody had it. So the moment it becomes pervasive, ubiquitous, and actually used, then the next cycle will start. And I do think that people like Microsoft and Google and Meta have a huge advantage. Even the tweaks that are happening now will have very significant changes in the ways to come. So today, if I search, the whole programmatic ad model is on a list of publishers coming up when I do a search query. Now they are obliged to, or they're incentivized to give you a summary. That's Perplexity's entire model, that once that changes, where is the traffic going to go? Where is the advertising going to get shown? So I think I wouldn't say it's the end of the beginning, I think. And it's the start of the very active and very shaping middle period that I'm excited to enter now.
Well, that's a great note to end our conversation on, something to ponder and think about as we go into this AI era. Thank you so much for your time, Shubhranshu Rohan. Lovely chatting with you as always.
Thank you, Dilshad. Great to be here.
Thank you.